Good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Akron Public Schools Board of Education today on 12 September 2022. It's good to see everyone here today. We will start our meeting with a roll call. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Ms. Jackson.
Present.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now are really excited to have our color guard from Bookville CLC Air Force. We have Cadet Technical Sergeant Brown, Cadet Staff Sergeant Rice, and Cadet Staff Sergeant Trammell, and Cadet Senior Airman Nolan. We're excited to have you here, and they will present the colors. And with that, we will all stand for the presentation of the colors. Thank you very much. You'll be seated. And we will hear from the cadets now. And we will grab a microphone, and we want to thank Colonel Ariello. Oh, darn, I think I said that wrong. Ariano. Yes. Thank you. For her leadership.
Hi. Do y'all hear me? I'm Cadet Technical Sergeant Brown. I am a second-year cadet, and I am a sophomore in high school. Our program currently has 58 cadets. That is more than double the number of cadets we had at this time last year. We have 28 first-year cadets and 30 second-year cadets. Our weakness is we have no cadets who have been in the program for longer than 2 years, so we don't have an experienced group of leadership. Our strength is nearly every cadet who was in the program last year came back this year, so we have good mentors for all the new cadets. This year, our goal is to go to the Air Force Drill Nationals in Dayton, Ohio.
Good job.
Hello, I'm Cadet Senior Airman Rice. I'm a second-year cadet. I'm a sophomore at Bookville High School. And after high school, hopefully, I get to go to the Army.
Hello, I am Cadet Staff Sergeant Trammell. I am a second-year cadet. I am also a sophomore in high school. After high school, I also want to go into nursing, but if all goes well, I want to go pro for track.
After high school, I plan on going to the Air Force Academy.
Hello, I am Cadet Senior Airman Nellums, and I am a senior in high school right now, and after, I am planning on trying to go into the Air Force.
Thank you very much. We're so proud of you and your tenacity and your leadership. ROTC is an outstanding organization and program that you will look back on for the lessons that you've learned for years to come. I know I do. Anyone from the board have anything to ask of our great cadets? You get one question. Miss Dr. Hall.
Sorry, I got two. Got to get two in here. First, Cadet Rice, did I hear you say that you were interested in joining the Army after you finished high school? All right, hua. Okay, just want to confirm that. All right, and then my other question is for Colonel Arellano. They mentioned that you've got double the number of cadets this year than you did a year ago. What do you think are some of the factors that contribute to such incredible growth in just a year span?
I think we've got two factors. One was being in school all year last year, so the cadets were able to get out in the halls, they were able to do some recruiting. But we've also got great buy-in from our building administration, from the counselors and administration. We're really good at identifying cadets that could or should be in the program, who will most likely stay in the program. So that's helped us a lot, but really being in the building last year, a full year, was what really made the difference.
Roger that. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Congratulations and thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now will move to community and school reflections. Excuse me. Anyone wants to give any community and school reflections? Mr. Perry.
Thank you. So I had the wonderful chance today to visit Boris Community Learning Center. I'd never actually been over there and seen the building. It was a very nice school. Met Mrs. Douglas, the principal, gave me a tour of the entire school. And I want to brag about the T-shirt that I got. It's a very nice T-shirt, and it says Boris on it, CLC, the Boris CLC Eagles. So I have a T-shirt now. I was also able to go around and hand out T-shirts to students who have been perfect attendance for this year so far. Some of the stay in the game T-shirts. We went to about 6 classrooms, distributed those, and they were so excited to get those T-shirts. So had a great time over there, and thanks for welcoming me in your school today.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson.
Well, when I went to Boris, I got a cup, a bumper sticker, and a T-shirt.
Okay, I got to go back then.
It's a great class. Oh, my goodness. I hope on my time on the board I get another time to double back. Now it's just the Garfield cluster. That was a wonderful cluster, so I'm sure you had a great time. I enjoyed my experience there as well. I was fortunate to visit Helen Arnold, actually twice since the last board meeting. I came to the clap-in, which was the first day that they welcomed their lower grades of students. And it was a wonderful atmosphere. It was great energy. Val, I remember you told me, have you ever been to Helen Arnold? And I said, no. And you said, wait till you go. You'll see. And I definitely did see. It's definitely it was a great energy walking in. It was the first day, so, that was a great experience. The same as when I went to Bookto for that event was like the teachers and the staff. The whole cluster was there. Convocation, yeah. It just was a wonderful experience, as I spoke about the last board meeting. But I got to meet some of the students, take pictures with the students, and that's my sweet spot because that's what we do it for. And my profession, as many of you know, I'm an educator and I'm a administrator now, but I was a teacher for multiple years. And I used to tell my administrator all the time, I don't want to come to any professional nothing if the kid's not there. I don't feel like I should have to be there in the building, because it's that's what triggers everything that we do. And I definitely got that sense with the kids, that it was a sense of family at Boris. So that was great. And then I went back and I was able to go into some classrooms. And one of the classrooms that I went into, it was the gifted teacher. She's a gifted teacher. She's only in the classroom for 40 minutes, and she was absolutely dynamic. And I had her name written down. I grabbed the wrong thing. Anyway, but she is at like I said, she's at Helen Arnold. She's the gifted teacher. I promise I'll say I never try to forget people's name, but she was amazing. Complete control, the activities. She kept the children engaged the entire time. When I left her classroom, I just left and gave her a high five. And she said, I said, tell me your name again. And I said, tell me your name again, only for me not to remember her name now. And she was the math. She does math in the gifted teaching. And she said, oh, I'm the gifted teacher. I said, you absolutely are, because it was clear of what she was doing and how she engaged those learners. And then I was able to go into additional classroom. The teacher was engaging the students. She was talking to the kids and getting to know things about them. And it's a good feeling when you can see young people excited about learning and teachers valuing getting to know their students. And you can see everyone is very comfortable in that space, and the students feel as though they belong, because I definitely got the sense that everyone felt a sense of belonging. And what I really liked about Helen Arnold is that I just walked through the school. I just walked in. The principal, first the office stopped me, and the lady laughed like, no, I know who you are. And so the principal was in a meeting. So I was waiting, and I said, well, okay, well. I just walked on, and that's how I walked in the classroom. But she had complete control, and I'm going to try to get it before this meeting is over so I can say it, so I can say the names. But that was a very great experience. Also, Mr. Alexander and I were fortunate enough to go into a conference. CASBA. Do you know that? Can you? We went to a CASBA, a conference for urban education, and one of the great things, Superintendent, you probably will be happy to hear, a lot of the things that they were talking about as far as innovative practices and things that were happening or that they were trying to have happen in our district, we're already doing in Akron. And so I was delighted to see that we're at the forefront of a lot of initiatives that other larger districts such as ourselves is trying to roll out. But another thing which I really liked and I understood from talking to teachers and meeting with teachers, some of the resources and things to uplift and to strengthen teachers for mental health and support. Virginia has gotten that down to a T, and I told Alexander I can't wait to talk to you all about that, to see how could we roll out this is award-winning. They were a Magna award-winning school for what they're doing for the mental health for their teachers as well as their students, and I said this is exactly something that a district such as ours can benefit from when we have wonderful teachers that are pouring out. You know, you can only pour out so much before you need to be filled up again, right? And so I thought that was good. And that's my reflection.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson, anyone else? Dr. Hall?
Am I on a word count? Just want to make sure we get
250 words. 250
words, okay. All right. Tough crowd tonight. That was a joke. I try to add some levity to these proceedings. It's okay to smile, those of you who are out there. So I was at a number of places since the last one. Schumacher, Case, King, Litchfield, Ritzman. Let me go with Schumacher first. A number of us were actually at Schumacher, and Chomps was there, Cleveland Browns, celebrating the attendance achievements of Schumacher Elementary School. And I got to say that I continue to be amazed at the level of engagement that you see from the families and kids as they walk up and they see Chomps. I mean, it really is something. It really, oftentimes when you hear about rewards, you know, is it really a reward to the kids? And it was so obvious that the kids and the staff, honestly, really saw Chomps being there as a reward for their achievements. And so, really, just wanted to call that out and again thank the Cleveland Browns Foundation for what they're doing to support our schools here in Akron. Number two, I was at Case Elementary School and had a really great conversation with the school counselor out there. I'm not going to get her last name right. I want to say it's Miss Schaefer, Victoria Schaefer. And she did a nice job of providing me a document that I hope to share with the rest of you that really does a nice job of outlining, first off, who she is and what value she brings to her building and to her community as a elementary school counselor. Really well done document. I was really kind of blown away at it. And so again, I'm going to share it out with the rest of you. But I'm wondering if that's something that all of our counselors are actually doing, or is that just something that we do? Oh, they're all doing it, Ms. Culver? Okay. Well, I got hers first, so really liked hers. it's a template. It's a document, multiple page document that allows the counselor to introduce themselves, what value they bring to the building, as well as what value they bring to the community, so that they serve. And so I thought it was a really well done document because it really told you all about the counselor that was there.
Like their certifications, like for mental
Their
health.
background, where they're from, also too, like, what they hope to bring to the building as well, so like basically it's sort of the raison d'etre document, right? So why am I here? Like what am I here to do? What's my mission while I'm here? And it kind of lays it out in very clear terms, like what their mission is in that building. And it feels very much like a mission document as well. So again, wanted to call that out as well. And then also, Richmond, I want to call it Richmond. So you've often heard us talk a lot about equity in these meetings, and we have an equity committee that you hear a report out on as well. Well, I was touring Richmond last week, and so I guess the teachers were asked to pick a word that they thought would a word that kind of describes sort of what they value and sort of a concept that they want to get behind. And so each teacher had a sign on their door kind of outlining what their chosen word was. And some teachers chose the word change and support and compassion. And there was one door in the building, there was just one, that had equity as their word. And that was Mrs. Owen Spoonster out at Ritzmouth. So again, Mrs. Owen Spoonster out there. So if you're watching, again, I just want to say to her again how much I appreciate it, walking by that door and see. And I took 3 pictures of the door, one close up, one 5 feet back, one 10 feet back, just so I had it. But again, her word for the year was equity. And so I just so appreciated seeing that, and so wanted to call that out as well. And so I think that will conclude my comments today. So, Mr. President, I'll see the floor back to you.
All right. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, I have the name. So I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's Stephanie Liapiet. Stephanie Liapiet. She's a gifted teacher, and when I tell you, my teachers in the room, you know what great teaching looks like. Engaging, correcting, watching still in motion. Like, she did not lose a beat. She had control of the classroom, and she was able to correct behavior without a lecture and keep it moving. Then she engaged at the end of the lesson, like I do, we do, you do, broke them up without having to say that, and the kids were like on fire. She engaged the kids that were not, that seemed like they were off task, and when students said things like, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, she was like, okay. Kept it going, went back to them, and that student was able to answer the question when she came back around. So I just thought it was just a great example of what was happening. So I definitely wanted to say that Ms. Liapiet, I think I said that right, I hope so, was great things at Helen Arnold. Additionally, I want to give a shout out to one of our own in central office, Mary Otley Kelly, because she is being honored by Project Grad. Project Grad is having, yes, that's Champions of Grad, their event is coming up, and our own Mary Otley Kelly is being recognized by Project Grad for her efforts and her support to our learners. So I just wanted to also give her a shout out and thank her for all that she does. I don't want to keep talking about my last cluster. I'm having a new cluster, and I'm excited about my new cluster, but and when I was in my Kimberly Garfield cluster, I'm so anxious to call it Garfield. But I saw Mary a lot, and I did see her efforts and her interactions with principals and things like that. So I think it's well deserved that you'll be a highlight. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Ms. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. President. And so I had the pleasure of visiting a few buildings in the East Cluster over the last week or so. And this is my second go around with East. I had them in 2020, right before the pandemic. And so it was nice to be able to reconnect with those folks. And just overall, I felt like the buildings were really, first of all, shout out to the custodians, because the buildings were clean, they were welcoming, the classrooms were exciting and engaging. I had the opportunity to stopped by Barber. I got a T-shirt from Barber. And so Mrs. Williams and her staff, they were really excited. They didn't have everyone there just yet, but those teachers were really huddled up and engaged, and they wanted to thank us for the tutors that they have for each grade, because that's really allowing them to do their work on even a better level. So they wanted to make sure that I shared that with us for providing that for them. Also, I visited Cyberling COC. Ms. Llewellyn, Dean Monica Galan was there, gave me a tour again, refamiliarized myself there. Their signage was great. The Leader in Me program, those signage, the marketing for that is awesome throughout that building. So it was really nice to see them. Their dismissal was so quiet and quick, and I learned that's the only school that doesn't have buses, and so that's probably one of the reasons. And so that was just nice to hear and see. I'm like, wow, it's pretty quiet. They actually are gone already. And so also I visited David Hill, Ms. McIntyre and her staff there. I know they had a goal of dismissal being done by 2:45, which they met. But it was just so wonderful to see. I was with the littles, with the kindergarten, first and second, and they just made sure that those students were handed off well. They made eye contact with each and every one of those parents and families who came to pick those students up, and it just really meant a lot to them. I guess they had a process during COVID where the pickup was, they didn't have that one-on-one interaction. And they insisted to their principal that they wanted to return to that. So it was just nice to see them carry that out. Also visited East, and it was the first day back for their high schoolers. And I just want to give a special shout out to Mr. Nolan, Larissa Brown, Mr. Carpenter over there. The reality of high school in urban education is that it's challenging. And so I witnessed them usher in, 660 students through 2 metal detectors. They did it efficiently. The students were cooperative. They understood. It was just an understanding that this is what we need to do to keep our students safe. And so that's just a reality for us. But for them to be able to function within that and still make those students feel welcome, I just want to give a shout out to that team, because that's not easy task to do. I couldn't believe it was 660 students that they do that for every single day. And so, again, shout out to all of them. I still have visits forthcoming with Mason and Robinson. I'm looking forward to visiting them. And again, I know I'm in the East Cluster, but I cannot leave the table without mentioning my alma mater. This past weekend, we celebrated our 5th annual banner program where we showcase seniors that are graduating the class of 23. And so 5 years ago, it started off with 10 poles that we put these banners up, and it's grown to over 25 scholars that we're able to feature all along Copley Road. And so it's been a great program. We arrive early in the morning. The students are camped out by the pole that they want. They want the pole that's by their street. And so the city of Akron was a good partner in helping us get that done as well. So just a special shout out to those seniors and those families who participated, and the PTA who keeps making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Autry. Anyone else? Mr. Alexander.
Okay. As Ms. Jackson said, we were able to go to a conference, and I did find the name of it, so I'm going to give the name because I can't remember all these acronyms. It's too many. It's called the Consortium of State School Boards Association, and this is their first year and their first conference. It was started by a group of state associations that used to be under the National School Board Association, and they broke off and they started their own organization. And they had some very, very good speakers, some very good presenters. Some of the speakers were just dynamite. I mean, they set the conference on fire, especially the first speaker who came up and spoke, and he set the tone for the conference. There were about 380 school board members / superintendents at this conference. And there were a lot of great breakout sessions. I didn't keep all of them, I didn't write them all down that I attended, but Mrs. Jackson and I did attend one together, and it was very good. But they talked about a number of different areas. I think we could have all learned from going to those sessions because they were just so good. Secondly, one of the things that, I'm just a child advocate, and I'm always talking about kids, and our focus should always be on our kids. And there's a group of kids that we should never leave out and never throw them away because they are kids as well, and they can possibly do some things and maybe do some things along the way that we may not think of. And most of you know that I work at Summit County Juvenile Court under Judge Linda Teodosio. She's very innovative, very caring about families and kids in the community. And we had, thus far, 6 kids who were housed in our facility there who actually graduated from Akron Public Schools. They got their diplomas. And I was fortunate to the last one that this young man, and his situation was so unfortunate, it wasn't his fault in particular, but he did what he was supposed to do. He came home, he buckled down, and he got his diploma, and I was able to present his diploma at the court, and they had a graduation ceremony for him. And so for me, that lets me know that that's what it's all about, staying focused on our kids, no matter where they're at, where they come from. And so these young people, deserve the education like all the others, because just because they got in trouble maybe and had a little difficult time as young people doesn't mean that they can't break out and be outstanding individuals later. So we need to make sure we take care of them. So I was very pleased that we had those individuals who graduated. Also, in the last, Mrs. Chapman and I had an opportunity to meet with City of Akron officials to talk about the City of Akron Racial Task Force, Equity Task Force Committee, the Education Committee, and we were able to give them a little bit more of what they wanted to see about what our recommendations were, and we had some very strong recommendations that the City of Akron is proud of, and Mrs. Sibley did a very good job of presenting this information to them, and they presented it to us this past Friday, all the chairs, and they're going to present it out to the rest of the city, and they were proud of what we are doing here in Akron. And Mrs. Sibley, Mrs. Chapman, she went on to there were 5 different focus areas that she talked about, and that's academic achievement, equity, climate and culture, operational efficiency and effectiveness, communications, partnership, and community engagement. And they were very impressed with what we are actually doing already in Akron Public Schools. They wanted to kind of be a model for local schools here in Akron. I know we don't control all schools in the city of Akron, nor does anyone else, but the city control. But it's good that we're doing some good things. And people need to know that we're doing good things. Just like Ms. Jackson said, when we were at the conference, there are people, we're listening to what people are trying to do, and we're already doing it. And so we're a model. And so I'm going to suggest to us as we move forward that we take our show on the road, that we let people know that what we're doing here in Akron, because there are people who will take what we've done and get credit for it, and we should be the ones getting credit for it. So I want to make sure that we get credit. Akron Public Schools get credit for what we're doing and being the trailblazers throughout the country. And believe me, these are school districts throughout the United States that are looking to Akron. I sat with 3, I'm going to leave with this, I sat with 3 board members from Virginia, and we were just kind of talking about a couple things at lunch, and they were start asking more questions. The more questions they asked, the more I answered. And they said, do you think that you guys will allow us to come to Akron to see what you guys are doing? Because what you guys are doing, we're trying to do. And so that's a testimony of how well we're doing here in Akron. So I want to make sure we continue to let people know that Akron is the leader of a lot of things that are going on, not other school districts across the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alexander. I think we all agree. All agree. We're leading. We're ahead. Anyone else? Any other community school reflections? Hearing and seeing none, we will go down to item 1.4, requests to address the board. We do have 6 requests to address the board today, and so I'm going to just give a brief overview of our participation policy for everyone. so I don't have to do it multiple times. But each person who wants to speak today will have 3 minutes maximum to speak before us. And it's not customary for the board to necessarily give responses to people who speak. We do often give recommendations for follow-up from different staff members through our superintendent. So that's what we do. We also ask that you keep all comments to limit complaints around specific staff or not include any student information or issues. And if that is a need that someone has, please let us know beforehand, and we can deal with that in executive session, because student information is protected. And that is all that I have. So we are going to go with the first person, which is Ben Gifford. Is Ben Gifford here? Thank you very much. You can go to that podium. Make sure the mic is on, because I don't know if anyone's used it yet.
Hello? Can you hear me okay?
All right.
Great.
So you have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Ben Gifford. I'm the finance chair of Akron DSA. I want to again ask the board to sign on to vouchers.
I'm sorry. Do you mind grabbing the mic?
grab it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
I want to again ask the board to sign on to Vouchers Hurt Ohio, which is a collection of school districts joining together to sue the state over its harmful private school voucher program that it continues to push and expand through HB 290, the so-called backpack bill, and HB 583. These, like all voucher programs, are clear violations of Ohio's constitutional requirement for the funding of common schools. School vouchers funnel public taxpayer money away from public schools and into private coffers, sending children to schools that have less public oversight in their curriculum and may be profit-driven and even fraudulent. It's important that Akron Public Schools not remain silent or impartial on this issue. School kids in Akron and throughout the state of Ohio stand to lose much through the voucher system. Akron Public Schools specifically stands to lose about $20 to $30 million annually. If you remain complicit with these vouchers, you are worsening our children's education, you are helping to elevate the disparity between school systems, you are slighting taxpayers and future generations so that Ohio's political machine and its allies can extract profit from education and push a radical conservative agenda to school children using public money. More than 120 school districts in Ohio have joined Vouchers Hurt Ohio, and I urge you to do the same. The website is vouchershurtohio.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us today. We will now have Jody Branca. I believe I said that correctly. Did I say that correctly? Branca. Sorry.
Good evening. I'm here to voice some concerns that my colleagues and I have regarding the mandatory teacher training and professional development and the curriculum adoption. We believe that this administration is either inadequately addressing our concerns or are completely not responding to us in a meaningful way at all. My name's Jody Branca. I'm a kindergarten teacher at David Hill. As my colleagues and I arrived at school several days prior to our students arriving, we were met with boxes of the new English language arts curriculum boxed in our classroom. Again, this was only a few days before students were to arrive at school. It was the first time that many teachers had even laid eyes on this curriculum, on this material that we were expected to then utilize to teach students in just a few days and in the coming weeks. In addition, a great majority of teachers, unless being aware that they were able to attend a training in the summer, a few weeks prior, over summer break, have not even been trained to use the curriculum. Professional educators deliver high quality and rigorous lessons to our students. After researching, studying, and planning the use of the curriculum in the classroom. Providing this board-adopted material at such a late and before training, at such a late date and before training is not only an ineffective way to start the school year, certainly not best practices, but also clearly not in the best interest of the students that we serve. It also places an unbearable burden on our educators who now must spend countless hours outside of the school day to review, develop, and plan lessons for which they will be evaluated in a completely unreasonable, finite amount of time. My fellow colleagues and I are expected to accomplish all of this while also being required by the administration to complete ALICE training, Corwin teacher clarity training, PLC training, HOOVA training, social emotional learning training, cultural competency training, vector training modules, school improvement planning, and on and on. In addition, this school year, kindergarten and first grade teachers are expected to complete 18 hours of dyslexia training. Amazingly, to meet this requirement, the district is not only requiring 18 hours of training, but 120 modules, 3 extensive case studies, and multiple observational videos to be completed. As you can imagine, these tasks will be impossible to complete within a workday and are exhausting, stressing, and causing many of my fellow educators to seriously consider leaving the profession. Board members, when addressing these concerns with the administration, the response I am receiving are simply acknowledgement that the initiatives being rolled out are certainly challenging, that the teachers are heard and will be supported, and that we are all APS and we will find a way. However, many of the teachers have learned that these type of responses are simply condescending remarks which ring hollow in the absence of genuine action to fix the problem. We need solutions.
I'm so sorry. You've exceeded your time over a minute. My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do encourage you to schedule a meeting with Superintendent Fowler-Mack and/or one of our other administrators to follow up on many of your concerns. Next we will have Amy Fegis. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Amy Fegis.
Great. Good evening. My name is Amy Fegis, and I'm a first grade teacher at Reimer CLC. I've been in APS. I've been a teacher here for 25 years, and I love it. But I'd like to share with you some concerns that I, along with many of my colleagues, have regarding the ever-increasing expectations that this administration is placing on our teachers to schedule and complete professional development and training after hours on our own time. While I acknowledge that the state mandates some of this training, we believe that the administration is completely out of touch with how negatively impacted our teachers have become with the implementation choices of our district's administration is making. We believe that, given the choices available to meet this mandate, the APS administration has far overreached the requirements and in doing so has placed an unsustainable and unnecessary burden on our teachers. For example, in January of 2021, the Ohio legislature passed a bill which requires all K-3 teachers to receive 18 hours of literacy training focused on teaching students with dyslexia. By the end of the school year, all kindergarten and first grade teachers must complete training. All second grade and third grade teachers will complete the trainings next year. What is so very frustrating is that while the state is requiring 18 hours of mandated training, our district is placing the burden of 120 hours of training on our primary grade teachers. These types of invasive, overreaching choices are exhausting and our educators to the point of negatively impacting not only our ability to deliver the very best education to our students, but also their ability to balance our life and attention to our own personal health and our well-being. I implore you, encourage all of those in this administration making the decisions to hit the brakes on this continual barrage of unreasonable demands on our teachers and to work with our leadership to develop both short and long-term solutions to this emergency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I offer the exact same suggestion as I did with Ms. Branco. We now have Melanie Yoham? Yom. Thank you for correcting me. Melanie Yom.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Melanie Yom. I'm a first grade teacher at Findlay, and I'm here to speak because I cannot be silent about the growing concerns I have for my fellow teachers, myself, and our students about the curriculum adoptions, professional development, and mandatory trainings which the administration is requiring of our teachers. When teachers return for the school year, 1 week prior to students returning, we were met with our first look at the board-adopted ELA curriculum. Teachers were tasked with collecting this new curriculum, which we are using this school year. It was the first time most of our teachers were able to see the new materials, and we were wondering how can we be expected to teach the appropriate proficiency with the appropriate proficiency our students deserve when we're being given only days to review all of the resources. In addition, most of the teachers have not been trained on these highly technical, interactive, and culturally diverse materials. The only training offered has been a brief opportunity during summer break, a scheduled training which many of our educators were not even aware of or able to attend. During the week prior to students arriving, we were given 3 hours of training and review on the curriculum. The Wonders program has many components. In first grade, our curriculum has 6 units. There are consumable and non-consumable products for each student for each unit. There are teacher manuals, a curriculum website, many interactive resources to support. It is absolutely absurd to think that we as educators can absorb these materials in 3 hours, then study, review, plan, develop, and write high quality and rigorous lessons in that amount of time. Yet we already begin when the students arrive. Don't our students and staff deserve more? Most of my colleagues and I feel very overwhelmed, exhausted, and inadequately prepared by the lack of support we are receiving from the administration. When I reached out, I was told there was no additional training offered until the October Instructional Improvement Day. However, depending on your building, other training may circumvent that curriculum training as the administration's determined other topics should take precedent over our curriculum training. One of those professional development topics for kindergarten and first grade is the new letters training, which was chosen by the administration to meet the state's dyslexia training requirements. The problem is the state requires 18 hours, but our administration selected a 120-hour module series, which also includes 3 extensive student case studies and various material and video reviews. If it's not painfully clear, we are educators as we are at a breaking point. We are exhausted, we are shattered, we are drained, we are at a tipping point. Teachers are leaving in record numbers. Teachers and administrators in Akron are leaving for other districts and other opportunities, hoping there may be another school district where they may be truly listened to and heard. We're not saying these new trainings don't hold merit. What we are saying is when a mandate comes that requires an 18-hour commitment over a year, we should not adopt a 120-hour program just because we can. It's irrational, unfair, and unsustainable. I want to close by focusing back on my students. APS students and families deserve more from the district. If I'm continually stressed and depleted, I cannot serve my students in the capacity which they deserve. I can't give the attention and dedication they should rightfully expect if I'm unable to focus on my teaching practice because I'm continually running on an endless wheel of unreasonable demands. And lastly, I think my family also deserves more from me. I have a 5-year-old son, and he deserves a mom who can come home from work and focus just on him and his needs. I deserve time with my family without worrying about paperwork, unfinished lesson plans, hours of screen time, and the exorbitant deadlines that are being demanded of me. Please know my colleagues and I cannot afford to wait for one more endless committee meeting to study this issue and discuss potential solutions. We need action now, we need relief now, and we need you to hear us now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have Dawn Blankney. I believe I said that correctly.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Blakeney. I'm a first grade teacher at Forest Hill CLC. And I'm here tonight to talk about some concerns which many of my fellow teachers and I have regarding the board's newly adopted English language arts curriculum rollout and also the district's required professional development and training schedules for all teachers. Many of my colleagues and I are particularly troubled by the recent administrative plans to meet the state's mandates surrounding dyslexia training for all K-3 teachers. I can appreciate the fact that our district needs to follow the state-imposed directives, which require many of these trainings. I also understand that these requirements come with deadlines. However, I feel the APS administration approaches training and professional development in an inappropriate manner. Way too often, the administration takes a last-minute, top-down approach, resulting in being reactive rather than proactive. Instead of taking the time to plan genuinely and collaboratively with teachers to implement thoughtful, constructive, and most importantly, realistic training, impossible tasks and unrealistic time deadlines are placed on teachers without any reasonable solution to complete such tasks. We are told, just make it work, or we support you, we know you can do it. I know that you hear loudly and often that teachers had input or that decisions were made collaboratively. I am here to tell you that in many cases, that simply does not occur. More often than not, impactful decisions are made by administrators and then simply shared with teachers or on committees or district teams. That is not collaboration. That is not giving teachers true input and voice. Time and again, we hear about taking care of ourselves and reducing stress levels. Teachers are told they are heard, that their voices matter when decisions are made. We do not believe that storyline anymore. It is time for all of us to speak up and work toward changing the current narrative into a truthful and productive narrative. I started this school year teaching a new grade level in a new classroom and with new students. This school year, our teachers have been tasked with learning a new reading curriculum with 1 week before the students returned to school and teachers were to begin instructing using the new curriculum. We were given a total of 2 hours of training. The materials and resources had not been delivered, so teachers were forced to watch an electronic overview of the supplies and online resources. We had an opportunity to ask questions, but because this was our first opportunity to look at the materials, we did not know what we didn't know. Teachers really had no idea of what questions to ask. This was a very poor way to roll out something so important and impactful for our students, particularly as we are working so diligently to recover instruction. Our students deserve better and our educators deserve better. When I asked for more training, I was told that that would be happening during future instructional improvement days, the first of which is scheduled for October 7th. Our first quarter interims go out on September 27th. Students' first quarter grades close on October 21st. How many weeks, days, hours of lost or diminished instructional time does this inadequate curriculum rollout cost our students? I'll tell you, too much. Way, way too much. Yes, additional training has been added for teachers. However, it doesn't even come close to the amount needed to respectfully implement a new curriculum. In addition, much of this training is being put on the back burner because of all the other training scheduled for teachers. Some of my colleagues here tonight have discussed the 120 hours of dyslexia training, which the administration decided upon when the state is only requiring 18 hours. Is this decision far too overreaching? Yes. Where are the hundreds of hours required to complete all of these trainings? The assumption, quite frankly, is that teachers will complete training on their own time. Do many of these training have merit? Of course they do.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You've elapsed your time by a minute. I appreciate it. And we encourage you to please speak directly with our superintendent and the administration. We now have the final Okay. You,
So my question is, do we have anybody else that's going to address the board, or was that the last person?
there's one other person.
There's one more person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I will wait until the last person goes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. We now have Mike Harkness. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Harkness. I'm an intervention specialist at Glover CLC. I'm also a product of this fine district. I am here tonight to voice the concerns that my colleagues have stated to us over and over again. First of all, we are here to implement a brand new curriculum. Also, I share with you how teachers feel an alarming amount of required professional training and development that has been scheduled for teachers by this administration. As educators, we know we've committed ourselves to be lifetime learners for the benefits of our students. We continually participate in professional development to improve our teaching practice. However, ignoring the balance between work life and home life is not only unhealthy for ourselves, but also for our family and the communities we support. This school year, when we returned just a few days before students, K-1 teachers were told for the first time they would be required to complete 120 hours of letters trainings. That included modules, 3 extensive case studies with students, and to watch and review multiple videos to meet the state-required dyslexia training. The new state law only requires 18 hours. How did we get, but this administration imposed 120 hours of this training? That math just doesn't add up. We have professional educators within this district that make amazing things happen every single day for the students of this school. We are shown appreciation by layering more and more and more training onto our day. However, the administration just adds 100 plus more on top of that. We just can't do it anymore. We're tired of it. Unfortunately, our overload doesn't just end there with dyslexia training. This year, the district adopted new language arts curriculum. Most teachers have not even received training at all, but they are expected to begin instruction with this new curriculum. The few teachers who were able to come in over summer break and were met and do this training were met with little or no support. The materials weren't even available or live for them to get onto. Teachers were just told the new curriculum could do this and could do this, but we had no materials to really prove that. As we started the school year, inadequate training did not change. Then we were hit with ALICE training, teacher clarity, cluster-specific training, PLC Plus, AVID, Vector, Gifted, special ed training, IB training, AP training, and on and on and on. Teachers are just left to figure it out on their own. We just had to put everything else on the back burner, but what about our kids?
Right.
You know, I know you hear this over and over again, the administration, the teachers' voices are heard, that we have input on the decisions that were made. Let's pull back the curtain on that narrative. Teachers are informed of decisions after they are made. And then because they attended an informal meeting or an informational meeting, they're told their input was actually brought out. It is simply not true, and it must change. During COVID, we often said things like, we're building the plane as we're flying. During this time now, I feel like we're building that plane again. But we showed up with no wings, no engine, and no pilot. I'm a husband, a father, and a coach. I am involved with my family and this community and many others. I'm also a dedicated educator. I constantly strive to do what's best for my students, but I also need to do what's best for my family and myself. I will not sacrifice my health and well-being or that of my family because a handful of people in a room someplace make the decisions in a vacuum. It's not sustainable. I'll just tell you this. We've had enough. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harkness. That concludes our request to address the board. We will now move to recognitions, which is...
Dr. Akbar, I have
Yes.
a comment. Let me just say that it takes an incredible amount of courage for all of you to come here and stand up and say what you said. So I want to thank you for coming to talk to us. So while we're not going to comment directly on the content of your remarks, again, I just wanted to thank you for having the courage to come out here and talk to us tonight. My second comment is, this board is a community elected board, and so many of you not only teach the students who live in the district, obviously, but many of you also live in Akron, and you're voters. And part of your job is to hold the members of this board accountable for everything that we do and do not do. So again, I just want to say that I hear you. I think we hear you. And again, thank you for the time that you have spent to prepare your remarks and to come down here tonight and to deliver your remarks. I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move to recognitions. And we will have a recognition for our outgoing treasurer, whose last official day for full-time work was on the 31st of August. But he hasn't escaped us yet. We appreciate him being willing to stay on to support us a little bit longer. We will go in this order. We will have recognitions by Superintendent Fowler Mack, then Todd Atkins, our assistant treasurer, and then I will read the resolution and support from the board for Mr. Pendleton. So we'll start with Superintendent Fowler Mack.
Thank you very much, and good evening to our board and to members of the audience and also those joining us virtually. We're really excited to be able to take the time out to bring recognition to the accomplishments and work of our CFO, Ryan Pendleton. 8 years, I'm sure, just kind of went by very quickly since you have been here working in the Akron Public Schools. And I will say to you, much like I said when talking to Dr. McWilliams-Woods, it's unfortunate that I kind of caught you at this stage in your career where you're expanding your horizons and your reach for your expertise. It has been a pleasure to work with you. Ryan is a CFO that, like so many of us as educators, works in an environment of uncertainty and change, especially these days, as we seek to not only meet the needs of today's system, but also to look to the future and to prepare for that future. He is one that has been given, he is approached his work with a true commitment to our primary purpose. So as a financial person, to know that really every conversation we have, you weave in how is this going to impact teaching and learning, and you see past the numbers to see our children. That really makes a difference. And so we applaud you. We applaud you for your technical expertise, your willingness to be a strategic partner, the tenure that you hold that has brought about a wisdom and a network that we've been able to draw upon when we've had challenging situations, and an openness to be innovative because, again, we're operating in real times of uncertainty, planning to really, through the lens of equity, to meet the needs of each one of our students. So I recognize you. I applaud you for what you have done. I'm glad you will continue to be a friend to the district and a resource to our administration as well. So congratulations. Mr. Atkins.
I don't think it's on.
It's on. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So back in September 2014, we were fortunate to hire Ryan as our CFO treasurer. For the past 8 years, Ryan has grown the finance department, hiring the quality staff we see behind us back here. He leads the department and district very well. We admire his many strengths, his calm demeanor, and the fact we all are a team. Under Ryan's leadership, the Finance Department continues to have one clean audit after another, earning the Auditor of State's awards multiple times. Our department is a shining example for the state. When Ryan's involved in a project, such as a fair school funding plan, it means our entire department is involved. Everyone pitches in, learns about it, helps create the presentations, but Ryan is the one who makes it a reality. His passion, his dedication, his countless hours testifying, educating others throughout the state contributed to the Fair School Funding Plan formula being included in the state's biennium budget just now. We've all grown and learned so much from Ryan the past 8 years. Thank you, Ryan, for your dedication to not just us, the Finance Department, but the whole district as a whole. We wish you the very best.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Atkins, I think, brings greetings from the entire staff in the Treasurer's Office. So if our entire staff in the Treasurer's Office who's here, if you can stand, please, so we can recognize you. They're the fantastic, outstanding, hardworking, diligent staff that work every day and make Ryan look good to us, even though he looks good by himself.
There's
too.
no doubt about that. They make it happen.
Yes, and we hear so much every time when we talk to Ryan about the support and love that he has for the staff in that department. So I just wanted to give you a shout out. And also just share that on behalf of this board, before I read only parts of the resolution and present you a token of our appreciation for your service on behalf of the board, I just wanted to begin by saying we have been incredibly blessed as a district to have your leadership and the leadership in your office and with the incredible, talented staff that you have. There has been no doubt when we talk about our financial standing and fiscal management and forecasting that you get it. I know when I joined the board and I had a conversation with you about what does an equity financial picture look like, you jumped right at it to really work through what that could look like, and I appreciate you. Also wanted to just say that there's a few words when you're talking to Ryan you're going to hear. You will hear about the 5-year forecast and all of the things that go into that. And one of those things are what he likes to say is, what assumptions are we adding to this calculation? And so I just want to say that we appreciate you for making sure that we have all the pieces and parts and components of those assumptions as we build our 5-year forecast. But more importantly, just wanted to end by saying that it has been an extreme pleasure working with you, Ryan, getting to know you and even bumping into you at Target, where we were both spending too much money. It's always a pleasure. And so I will, on behalf of this board, then I'll open it up to the board, read a resolution of appreciation for the Ryan Pendleton. Ryan Pendleton has been the treasurer of the Akron Board of Education from September 1st, 2014 to August 31st, 2022. He has provided unwavering support and direction to the board, and has demonstrated outstanding leadership in handling the public school finances, and has made the financial picture clear and consumable for all stakeholders of the district, educating the public about school finance throughout his career. He was integral in the district's 20-plus year project of the construction of our new CLCs, which we just completed the last one. And also, he was integral in the consolidation of our district administration offices at the Ott Building, as well as the newly acquired 10 North Main, the 70 North Main building to go into the 10 North Main building, which we are in today. He also was a critical partner for the Fair School Funding passage here in Ohio, which hopefully will become a state staple to increase the funding for schools like ours. And it wasn't that long ago, just 2021, where you were named the Treasurer of the Year and received the International Pinnacle Award. And so with that being said, there's so much more here, but now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Akron City School District recognize Ryan Pendleton for his outstanding leadership, and that we extend our sincerest appreciation and gratitude on behalf of this board, the entire staff, and everyone in the district and the community, whether they knew the touch that you had on our sustainability or not. We appreciate you, Ryan, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to Ryan, is there any board members who have anything they want to share with Ryan? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Pendleton, I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you, learning from you. I wish you well moving forward. You've just been an awesome treasurer, as well as you have the heart of a teacher. And so educating myself, the committee, and the general public, you've been excellent at that. And so thank you for all that you've done for the district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Dr. Hall.
It's hard to say something that hasn't already been said in the last several minutes. So I will, because I'm lacking in eloquence at this particular moment, let me simply just say thank you. I think you've been a great resource for me personally. I think you've done a nice job bringing the board along as well. And I know that cannot have been easy, especially when you've had so many new board members come on the last couple of years. And so I know that you're moving on to, I'm going to choke on this, but bigger and better things for you. And so wish you nothing but the best, and look forward to seeing you on the running trail.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, Ryan knows how I feel, and I feel proud to be one of the original board members who brought him on board here to Akron Public Schools. When we had our vote, it was a unanimous vote for Ryan. When he came in, he started doing the work right there with us. He started helping us to learn a new system, which we needed to learn, even though the person who came before him was good, but it was a little tougher to understand some of the work that we needed to understand. But Ryan brought that to us, so it was made it a lot easier for us to understand. Of course, I hate to see Ryan leave. I'm a person, I love to keep people around me who've been here and who know what's going on and have the experience and do the things that need to be done to carry things forward. But I know there's always a transition time, and this is a transition time for Ryan, and a transition time for Akron Public Schools. Ryan, wish you the best. We'll miss you. I know you'll still be around.
I will.
If we need to contact you, talk to you, or anything, you'll be there to listen and to help us and guide. And just appreciate everything that you brought to Akron Public Schools to take us from where we were to where we're at today. And we have a task now, this board, to hopefully bring someone in just as good as you, or if not better. And if we don't do that, we have not done a good job. So I look forward to seeing you do the things that you want to do, and to be able to reach your endeavors and your milestones that you want to reach in life. So thank you again. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mr. Perry?
Thank you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't join in. Obviously, Ryan's been very helpful to me. Being one of the newer board members, only being on the board now for about a year. When I first came on, Ryan was very instrumental in showing me financial, how it worked, how all that looked. And it was very confusing. It was a lot to take in. But he was very helpful with me understanding that. And I look forward to our conversations continuing about things outside of this. We're both marathon runners, so we talk about that all the time. So look forward to keep seeing him on the trail and running faster than I do sometimes out there.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, congratulations, Ryan. Good for you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, hearing and seeing that, I want to present to Mr. Pendleton this nameplate for your desk, your new desk. I shudder to say the new desk, but for your new desk, hopefully it's just a small token of appreciation from the board for your 8 years of service, but your many years and unaccountable amount of impacts that you've made in our district. So thank you. We turn it over to you for any remarks that you want to make.
Just a few, and I'm absolutely certain if this were December, I wouldn't be able to get through it. So because I'm going to see you all and work with you all, I've got the confidence to move forward and say a couple thank yous. So thank you so much to this board, the board that hired me, the board that's in place now. I sincerely appreciate our relationship, each and every one of you, and I think you know how I feel, how our team is diverse and strong, and I really value that. I valued that of an organization like this, especially Akron being my home. Christine, thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you so much for your grit and tenacity. These are very, very exceptional times. And so I really appreciate our relationship and the work that we're doing here. To the staff, I was super excited to see you guys here. You guys brighten my day every single day. We have such a great time and work. And I know you shudder when I say the word project. So thanks for framing that in a way that didn't make me sound so evil. But you are truly an extension of this organization and work, and you guys are rock stars. You never miss a beat. You never miss a beat in light of a global pandemic, and we wake up and work from home, and you did it with grace and few errors that we could ever find. So thank you. You are so fantastic and awesome. And to the staff here, instructional staff in the buildings, and support staff, most importantly, I thank you for your grit. I thank you for your grit because these are very difficult times. And all the relationships in this room and those out in the buildings interacting with staff. I know your heart's there, and I know the APS heart is the strongest I've ever felt and been a part of. So for that, I thank you, and I'm so blessed to be able to work with you for the rest of this calendar year, at least. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we've had a lot going on in a short period of time, and so we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we will be back at 6:51. So that means every board member, please be in your seat at 6:51. We stand in recess for 5 minutes. to the meeting. And are we good to go? Are we recording?
We're good.
All right. Hello, everyone, and we have just returned from recess of the regularly scheduled board meeting on 12 September 2022. We will now move into our approval of our previous meeting minutes on 22 August 2022. Is there a motion on the table?
I so move to approve.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion on the motion to approve the previous meeting minutes? Hearing and seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to item 5 on the agenda, personnel recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Good evening again. I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 17. Highlighting within those recommendations are two important things. One is a celebration, the other a bit of sad news. The celebration is in item 5.8. We want to celebrate and wish well Kimberly Summers, who is a principal in our district that has accepted a new leadership position out of state. So she and her family are going to be moving on, and we want to, as an APS family, wish her well. We also, in item 16.1, I did send out a note to our APS family at large because we lost one of our own. Jill Reganos, one of our Maryland Park Award recipients just last year, died on Friday. And so she has been a master teacher in our district and was a beloved member of the APS family, was adored by her colleagues and the students at Firestone CLC, where she taught IB there. She has been with the district since the 1990, and so we did have that moment to offer comfort to one another internally, but that is a part of the board notes today. So I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 17.
Thank you very much. It's been properly recommended for the personnel recommendations by Madam Superintendent. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Ms. Autry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Hall. Any discussion on the motion to approve the personnel recommendations? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton?
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
No on 6.4 and 11.6. Yes on the balance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to our resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, for that I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 22. They are in proper format, and I move for their approval.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the table for the resolutions and motions on the consent agenda?
I so move.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the many donations that we receive from various individuals and organizations listed here tonight, as well as a lot of organizations and churches out in the community over this last few weeks leading up to the start of school. Lots of support has been offered, in the forms of back-to-school items that are needed, and so just a thank you to all of those donors.
Absolutely, yes. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to item number 23, Business Affairs Recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Thank you very much. It's been properly recommended for the business affairs recommendations. Is there a motion on the table?
So move.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Perry. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I have some questions. Dr.
Dr. Hall.
Yeah, my first question is in regards to item 23.12. This is the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio Service Agreement. Just trying to get some clarity around. So we're hiring 8 tutors. So is the assumption that I guess are we employing AmeriCorps because we're unable to find tutors here locally, or is this a move to where we're not sure how long we would be employing these folks, and so it made sense to go with a service contract for temporary provided services?
I will attempt to answer this, and then team, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think your latter statement is we are trying to broaden our pool of persons who are able to tutor for us. We are still hiring tutors, and so, but we have not filled every position available. So it is a matter of being able to broaden our pool with an organization that is successful and has done a lot of tutoring with school districts in the past. Experienced, I couldn't think of the words. Sorry about that.
Did you want to add anything, Dr. Caver? Okay. So I guess, okay, so let me ask a follow-up question to that then. So the assumption being that the existing pool of applicants for tutors is inadequate to address the needs that we currently have. Is that what we're saying then?
That is part of what we're saying. We do have a high dosage tutoring priority as a part of our ESSER plan, that we really want to spend this time working on academic recovery and acceleration, and so we want the ratio available. I think one of you talked about being at a school and them being able to say how much they are appreciating having the tutors available to support the work of the building. So we want to ensure that across the district.
So these folks are being hired to tutor, not to teach, right? So I just want to clarify that in my head. Okay, so
Yes.
so they're not going to be leading rooms by themselves. They are being hired to tutor, which in this context, again, help me out. In this context, that means that they are in the classroom at the same time as the teacher?
Oftentimes, there might be in other areas of the building, but in small group proximity. I'm sorry.
You do push in or pull out depending on how the teacher needs to be supported in the classroom. But the tutor would be utilized ideally with the instruction of the teacher. So it may be push in small groups, and it may be pull out when you think overall tutoring.
So let's see, Dr. Caver, you would concur with all that?
I concur.
Okay. Well, I believe Ms. Jackson's going to make her say it. Okay. Uh-huh. 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 So let me ask one more question on this one. And that is just, so the tutors that AmeriCorps provides and those that we're also hiring, they don't have teaching licenses. Teaching licenses. Is that a correct statement? Okay, they don't have to, but some of them may have teaching licenses. Okay, but if they had a teaching license, we still would not employ them. So we would still not ask them to do anything that would constitute a teacher licensed activity. Okay. Okay, so that's this contract, but I'm saying, but the tutors that we already employ. And this contract aside, the tutors that we have employed.
So we have a range of tutors for quite a few different purposes. So it just depends on what the type of assignment is for those folks. So
yeah,
we'd be happy to look into if there's, okay, Kathy.
The tutors that we hire are licensed teachers.
Okay,
The only
there,
ones that
okay.
we have that may not be would be the sub-tutors, just like the substitute teachers. For this year and for last year, because of COVID, we were able to hire non-bachelor degree subs.
Okay, so we have.
Tutors in the district are licensed teachers.
Okay, so we have.
Supposed to be like auxiliary tutors, like.
Auxiliary tutors are also licensed
Like, that's what I
teachers.
mean.
I don't know with this organization, because that didn't come through us, that came through school improvement.
Right, because
But
that's
our
what you're
tutors,
asking.
we hire licensed teachers.
Yeah, because I just want to make sure I understand the difference, as far as what the word tutor means, right? So, so to that point, and again, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying that something we have three buckets of tutors. We have tutors who are licensed teachers or have a teaching license. We have substitute tutors that are not.
Most of them do have licenses,
Oh, most
but
of
some may not.
And then we have this third pool, which are AmeriCorps supplied tutors, and these folks, we're assuming they don't have teaching licenses.
Many of them are degreed, but may not be.
But not have a teaching license,
Exactly.
Right? Okay, roger that. Okay, and so I guess it gets back to what I was trying to clarify, and that is, obviously we have a contract with a teachers union, right? That that teachers provide services that only licensed teachers can provide. So I'm clarifying that even if we have a tutor that has a teaching license, because they're in a job code of tutor, that we would not be asking them to provide a service that contractually is supposed to be provided by a licensed teacher.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's what I was trying to get straight. Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Hall.
And I have a question about another item too, but I'll
Okay.
defer to the group rest if you all have questions about something else.
Any other discussion? You have your last item, Dr. Hall?
Yes, my last item was 23.18. The question I had here was, my understanding is that this is a project that would create sort of, it's an out-of-school time network, and that we're committing to essentially, do you have this right? Is it 2 years of funding on this?
Yes.
Okay.
For the initial design phase of the network.
Roger that. And then my question, I think, goes to sustainability on this particular item. So, and I understand that there are other organizations that are providing funds to support that. Thank you for that follow-up. And my question is that beyond the 2 years, and I also understand that there are other districts that, multiple, as I understand, that employ a similar concept.
Yes.
Roger that. Okay. And so beyond the 2 years, is there a commitment from any organization to keep this intact or to grow it beyond the 2 years? Or, I mean, that may be unofficial, right? Because we're talking about 2 years of expenditures, but beyond, because I see that we're using ESSER 3 funds to fund this, and again, those funds won't be available in 2 years. So in 2 years, then, how would we be funding our contribution to this in 2 years?
Right, and so our contribution is around the startup design phase of that. And so there are organizations that are talking about any long-term overhead that this might require, but the goal is to have knitted together kind of a governance approach and to have tools available so that programs can be transparently accessed by our entire community, so that when a parent is wondering about things like additional tutoring or enrichment options, it's not limited to only what that parent knows, but they can go in and see what's available across the city. And it also gives providers that may or may not have the ability to be seen by different stakeholders, the ability to be at the table and to have their resources accessible and provided as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess what I was driving at, again, back to sustainability, is that beyond this expenditure, again, because this is an ESSER 3 tagged item, so those funds, as we all know, are gone after 2024.
Correct.
How would we then be funding this beyond 2024? Is that something that we're, to your point, are you saying that this will be built by then and will be self-sustaining?
It will be built and is intended to be self-sustaining by that point. So that's the hypothesis going in. We'll continue to learn about that, but usually in other cities, the sustainability is more about the in the nonprofit land, and in the school district land, it is about sustaining to the degree it can many of its offerings, because we are both participating in the design. We also we offer a lot of options. And so you recall that we talked a lot this past year about how we expanded the number of offerings, both for in the summer, but also in our after-school space during the course of last year, that we've carried on even until this year. So mainly our contribution will be to determine, to participate in that governance structure, but will be to continue a range of offerings that leverage then our college and career academy, different programs, tools, equipment.
So this is not something that, so Connexus couldn't do this? Because it sounds like what we're creating here is another convener or convener-like entity.
We are working together with many other parties. And so I'm not sure, to what degree Connexus, I believe, is also playing a part in this. But what we're trying to do is to braid together all of our resources. So
I
it's
understand
just,
that. No. I think the mission is crystal clear. I'm just trying to understand.
So we're not taking the lead.
Okay.
We are participating in this process.
Roger that. So if we didn't have ESSER 3 funds, would we still be contributing to this initiative?
We would be looking to see if we could still contribute, because I think our students, we are the main entity that has students attached to the organization, and we want them to have easy access to all of the resources available to them in the city. So we absolutely would find a way to be at the table.
So that would probably happen through general fund, I'm assuming then? If not ESSER
Through
3.
whatever means we could.
Okay.
It's beneficial
Roger
to
that.
us.
Okay, gotcha. And then last but not least, is there a timeline? I know I've asked about who would be, so it sounds like this is meant to be set up as an independent nonprofit moving forward.
Yes.
That would be administered by, that would have its own board of directors ostensibly and have its own executive director. That's my assumption as far as
To
how
the
these
degree,
things
and I
go.
don't know,
Right.
again, how complex the, organization will be at the end of the day, but it's usually, this is intended to be a shared governance model, so we will continue to be at the table, continue to have a say-so about our set of offerings and how it is we continue to collaborate with others across the city.
So do we know who the main person who's driving the day-to-day movement around this plan would be?
Well, we don't know right now. There are, in terms of who's participating in the design process.
Yep.
So we have the GAR Foundation, United Way is participating in this process. We have some spinoff, our Dr. Ellen McWilliams-Woods. When she left, you recall we talked about her using that knowledge and expertise to be a part of the out-of-school network. So she'll be involved in this process as well.
Okay.
And then we will be involved.
Roger that. Okay. No further questions on that particular item?
Thank you very much. Before I go to Mr. Perry, I just want to say, since we were talking about the Akron out-of-school time network, if done right, it could serve a great benefit to this community. So many of our organizations' outreach and reach is limited by the span of their network. And if an organization like this can expand those networks and also offer resources for their sustainability, it could mean much more support for our young people. So I'm not involved. I don't know what's happening, but just the premise and the idea to me does sound like something that, as Superintendent Fowler-Mack said, that I would support us getting behind personally. And because our kids need it, our community needs some type of coordinated effort around all of these resources. So, Mr. Perry, I'm sorry.
So I have a comment on a question on item 23.19, the University of Akron tuition payments for the Akron Early College high school students. My comment is, what an awesome program. One of my son's babysitters did that a couple years ago, and she got 2 years credit, I believe, college while she was in high school. And I thought that was amazing that she was able to come out of high school with that much college credit already. And the question is, how many students does it actually cover? I see the amount there. About how many students does that cover for next school year?
Sorry, I know you had, yes. Can you go to the mic to answer? Sorry. Thank you.
Early college has an enrollment of about 400 students. Right now, I think they're sitting right at 378. They generally get taken per year.
That's awesome. Thank you.
They take 100.
Yeah.
And again, I apologize for the multiple questions on this topic, but does every student at Akron Early College, they're all, I guess we're paying tuition on all of them, or is that just the students who are taking the college classes? Because isn't it a mix?
Yes, so starting with freshman year, they are immediately enrolled as part of their acceptance to Akron Early College. They also are accepted into the University of Akron, and they start freshman year taking courses. Of course, your freshmen are only going to take like one course per semester as we're teaching them how to be college students. And then by the time they are juniors, we're looking for them to be full-time college students. So they're going to be taking a minimum of about 12 hours per semester.
Roger that. But so freshman year, like they're mostly going to be with
Correct.
APS teachers, and they may have a class or two that's at the university level. Okay, and so this dollar amount is meant to cover the University of Akron portion for the entire school.
Correct.
Roger that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And are there any other discussion points? I only have one additional. Just wanted to get clarity on the Admentum agreement. I know, Superintendent, we talked about it previously, but I think what we talked about the last meeting is this agreement, and something else is the other agreement. So if you could just, since that was talked publicly, if you can just provide that clarity for us.
Sure. I was clarifying with Dr. Akbar that in the last board meeting, there also was a resolution that dealt with Admentum, and but the conversation that ensued about that really was talking about the numbers of students who are enrolled in our online school format, and so that program, whereas that particular resolution at that time was more about the credit recovery software and the opportunity for students at each of our schools to access credit recovery. This particular resolution does support the programming that is associated with the students who have chosen to take APS online this year as a part of their academic program.
Thank you very much. And that also corresponds with the amount differences. So it makes sense to me why this amount is higher. I just wanted to make sure that we shared that, since that was a public discussion. Any other discussion points on business affairs recommendations?
So I have a follow-up question, Dr. Akbar, to yours on 23.11. Is there a plan for us at some point hiring APS teachers to provide these online courses, or are we talking about sort of permanently employing groups like Admentum to provide online education? I just want to understand sort of what the future holds. Like, is this kind of the plan
Sure.
indefinitely, or do we have a plan to bring this in-house at some point?
Yeah, we don't have a defined plan at this moment, but it is something that we have been talking about, that we've been talking about at the district level. We've talked about with our teachers union, things of that nature. So, but there are no definitive plans at the moment. We really last year focused more of our efforts on ensuring that we were bringing students and staff back into a more normal school year, and just really, you recall how unstable last year was. So our priority was really knowing that we had a viable solution, was kind of working in the format we have currently. But we'd love to be able to explore the option, with no guarantee of what that outcome would be.
Roger that. So if we were not, so again, I see this as we're using ESSER 3 funds to fund this as well. If we did not have ESSER 3 funds, would we still be finding a way to fund this?
We would, because we actually now, and especially so after post-COVID, there is increasingly a population that this format just works for, families. And so we do want to be a system that has multiple options to be able to support our families. But I think we're still learning, kind of what that population really is. So last year, there were many more students who took advantage of that. This year, the numbers have decreased from that and still aren't what it used to be, as low as it used to be, but have leveled off from how high it was last year. So I think within the next year or so, we're going to have even a better picture of who is the audience that we need to be planned to serve.
Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
No on 23.5, 6, 11, 12, 14, and 18. Yes on the balance.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
No on 23, 5, 6, 11, 12, 14, and 18. Yes on the rest.
Thank you. Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to Superintendent's report. Madam Superintendent?
Sure. And I'll be brief in the report today. First of all, we are just wanting to recognize and thank publicly our parents and our scholars and our educators in all facets of the work, both in classrooms and also those in support roles. We have been having a really smooth opening to this school year, and that really takes the energy and efforts of everyone working together. So we just don't want to act like we take that for granted, and just thank everyone for their attention to details, their attentiveness about building relationships, things of that nature. And we really hope to keep things going, because we are right now exemplifying at a high level what Be Kind 330 is all about. So congratulations all around to our schools and to our families. With that type of environment, it brings goodwill. And so we've really enjoyed a lot of goodwill in the last couple of years by many of our partners, and you saw that in the donations. And this week will bring even more reason to celebrate. So tomorrow is a big day for us in collaboration with the Cleveland Browns organization, both the foundation and the organization at large. We talked in the fall, or in the late spring, I believe, where we had broken ground at Bookdale High School and were able to accept a gift of a field, a turf field. And so we'll be really pleased tomorrow to have Chomps back on hand and several of the player and persons from the organizations as we cut the ribbon on that field so that we can get out of the way so that the athletic contest can begin. So the football team in particular will be able to open up on the new field, and then all of the different sports, will, for our band, for our soccer teams, for our littles that also play football, or the community at large will start to be able to access that space. So we're really excited about that and hope that the weather cooperates on us tomorrow. We also, though, prior to that, will start the day at East CLC, where in the summer, you recall, the Browns organization used as its volunteer day, that's organization-wide volunteer day. They did a summer blitz of projects, and they chose to focus on us here in the Akron Public Schools and did that at East CLC. So we will cut the ribbon again tomorrow on a first of its kind, Stay in the Game room. And so I won't give away too many details about that. We'll talk about that afterwards. But also we will be officially dedicating our restorative resource room that we're hoping to replicate at many more of our schools as well, so that we can have many more alternatives to suspension and planning that takes place with our young people. And then we can also see the final of the courtyard refresh that took place at the 2 courtyards at East High. So that will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and then we'll zoom across town to celebrate at the other location. So both of those celebrations will be brief, but we're really excited to have the ongoing partnership and encouragement of the Browns organization, along with so many of our partners at large. So with those 2 announcements made, I'd like to ask Dr. Kaver to come to the mic, and we're going to do a presentation because one of the things that will occur this week is also going to be the release of the state report card, and it is yet another new format. And so Tamia is just going to ready us to receive that information from the state. Dr. Kaver?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As the superintendent has stated, I'm going to go over a preliminary report of our report card that should be released this Thursday on September 15th. We wanted to take the time to take this opportunity to share our results with the board before the actual release of the report card. So today I'm going to share with you a little information about the new ratings, the report card timeline for the reform that is taking place in our state. We will look at some of the weights and the measures of the new report card system, as well as dig deep into some of the components of the actual report card, and also share with you our preliminary ratings, what we expect to receive when the report card is released on Thursday. As stated, we are in the middle of a report card reform in the state of Ohio. As you can see, we will be releasing, the report cards will be released this Thursday, and so that's where we are in the timeline. However, there are other additional changes that will also take place from the state over the next few years that are in addition to the report card that's being released today. But again, we are in this phase of the report card reform timeline with the state of Ohio. So one of the primary changes that you will see in the new report card is the style of the ratings. Previously, we would receive ratings in our components and in the overall report card with letter grades of A through F. With the release of the new report card, the style of rating is moving from a letter grade system to a star rating system, anywhere from 1 to 5 stars. So that will be new. In addition, in the past, we had 6 areas on the report card that were being rated. And with the new report card, we are moving to, again, 6 areas. However, there are changes in the naming or the title of the components, and there are also some changes in the component calculations as well. So before we had K-3 literacy, which is now early literacy, and we also had prepared for success, which has now become a category called college, career, workforce, and military readiness.
Quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Kaver.
Yes.
Just you go back a slide, sorry. Yep. The early literacy, is that something beyond K through 3? Like, are they at fourth grade, or is it still K through 3?
It's still K through 3, but I am going to go through each component for us individually too.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So again, I just wanted to point out that now with the measures, in the prior system, the measures would receive a letter grade or a rating as well. And currently, with the new report card, the measures don't receive ratings. Only the components themselves will receive an overall rating, and then we will also get an overall star rating for the district with all the components combined. This is not our report card, but this is what the new report card will look like when we receive it. So this is just a visual for everyone to see. You will notice that there are stars next to the 6 components, and then also the 6th component, which is the CCWM, again, college, career, workforce, and military readiness. Data will not have a rating. It actually won't have a rating until the year 2025, although the state is collecting data as we build up to that time period. A summary of the stars in terms of what they mean. Pretty much you want to start with a 3-star rating, which means that you are meeting your state standards and achieving and doing what it is that you should be doing as a school district. Anything above 3 stars means that you are exceeding state standards. And then as you start to get ratings below 3, it means that you need some support in order to meet the state standards. So as mentioned previously, the CCWM area will not be rated. So as we look at the rating currently, our report card will only have 5 areas. And each of those areas are weighted differently, as is stated here on this slide. So we will only be looking at 5 areas that will lead to our overall star rating. And again, achievement and progress, as you can see, are rated heavier than or weighted heavier, not rated, than gap closing, early literacy, and graduation rate. This slide is so that you can see what measures actually contribute to each component. And as I stated, I'm going to go into detail a little more with each one of these. But as you can see overall, there are measures and percentages of those measures that actually go into each of the component ratings. So in general, or in brief, I should say, these are our ratings that we are expecting on the report card once it is released this Thursday. We got 3 stars in gap closing. We have 2 stars in the areas of achievement and progress. And then we earned 1 star in graduation rate and early literacy. And now I'm going to take the time to actually go through each one of these 5 areas so that you can see how we receive these ratings. So the first area we're going to look at is the achievement component. The achievement component measures students' academic performance on each of our Ohio State tests. So those are the tests that the children take starting in 3rd grade, going on to high school. So those are all of our OST tests that we receive, as well as our end of course tests at the high school. In order to determine your achievement rating, they look at performance index. First, let's give some highlights. For the 2022 report card that is being released, some of our highlights is that we have increased in 6 out of 7 areas in English language arts. We increased in 5 out of 8 areas in mathematics. We increased in 2 out of 3 areas in science. And overall, our performance index rate increased by 19.5 points. Again, performance index is what we look at in order to determine our achievement rating. Here is a recap of our performance index over the last 4 years. So as you can see, we were hit hard. And when we test, we were hit hard after the pandemic year. And when we took our test in 2021, our performance index for the district was 39.21. So in a year's time, we have bounced back and our performance index rate has increased by 19.5 points, giving us a 58.71 performance index score. As you can tell, we are trending in the right direction. We've shown tremendous progress, and that goes to the work of our teachers and our building leaders and our central office staff that are supporting these individuals. But I do want to take a moment to just recognize the hard work that has taken place in this school district over the past year, and being able to achieve a 19.5 increase is a great feat for our employees of this school district. We also know that we are still in our road to recovery. So it appears that the systems that we have put in place are working, but we still do have a little ways to go to get to where we were pre-pandemic in our school district in the area of achievement. Oh, I apologize. Went too fast. The second area we want to look at is progress. In the progress area, we earned 2 stars. Progress is looking at the academic performance of the students compared to their expected amount of growth. It is basically looking at a scholar from one school year to the next and saying, did they make a year's worth of growth? It is actually not measuring a student up against a score or a standard. It is looking at where the scholars are academically on their own performance, and then recognizing how much growth did they make to the next school year. And the expectation is that they would make 1 year's worth of growth. This is also commonly referred to as value added. This is an example of how the score is actually calculated. This has been changed, and there's a 2-step process. So everyone starts out at a 3. The assumption is that a scholar would make 1 year's worth of growth just coming to school every day and getting instruction. So everybody starts at a 3. Then there's something called the growth index that is calculated. And what we are looking for is they are looking at the evidence or statistical evidence that the observed growth in that scholar is indeed above or below the growth expectation. If it is above the growth expectation for a scholar, that's how you move from a 3 to a 4. If it is below the growth expectation is how you would move from a 3 to a 2. And then the second part of this calculation is differentiating based on effect size. With the effect size, they're looking at the magnitude of the growth to see if it was large enough to basically move from a 4 to a 5 or from a 2 to a 1. But again, everyone starts with 3 stars, and then the data analysis or this 2-step process determines if our rating is moved. The progress component eventually will be a 3-year component. This is our first year with progress, so therefore the rating that we received this year is 100% of the score that we received this year is 100% of the rating that we will receive. As we go into next school year, then we will have 2 years worth of data, being the current year will be weighted at 67% and the previous year will be rated at 33%. Until we eventually get to the 3rd year of progress information, which will then be broken down into 50% current year and then 25% for each of the 2 previous years. A highlight that we want to state, while the district received an overall 2 stars, we do want to recognize that our elementary schools in 24 out of 27 buildings in our elementary schools earned 3 stars or above. So some of them earned 3 stars, some of them earned 4 stars. So we do want to recognize the work of our elementary buildings at this time. Mrs. Outley. Again, we are well on our way. The third component that I want to discuss is gap closing. This is the area where we earned 3 stars, and gap closing measures the reduction in educational gaps in student subgroups. In our school district, you can have in our school district, we have 9 subgroup categories that we're rated in. You can have up to 10 in the state, but we only have 9 here in Akron. The items that are measured in the gap closing area include gifted performance, chronic absenteeism, English learner proficiency, graduation goals for student subgroups, academic performance or achievement in ELA and math, according to subgroups, and then also academic progress or growth, like we were just speaking about previously, in ELA or math for certain subgroups. So here's gap closing overall, and I'm just going to go through each section really quickly. So first, with chronic absenteeism, as I stated in a previous presentation, we have a new baseline in chronic absenteeism. This year, chronic absenteeism, although we know our number, is not being included in our report card rating, but it will be included starting next year. The next area is English Learner Proficiency Improvement Indicator. This is where we are looking at the OELPA scores of our scholars and seeing how much improvement or how much progress they are making on that assessment. So that's another area. Oh, I do apologize. Did it go to a different one? Oh, and I should state with the English Learner Proficiency Improvement Indicator, we received the maximum amount of points that we could receive in that area. Graduation. Graduation also has individual sub-goals in those 9 categories that I was referencing, which would include things like economically disadvantaged, English learners. It will include subgroups of scholars by race. And so this is another area where there are specific rates that are specific goals, not rates, goals that are set in terms of meeting those, and you can earn points by actually meeting those goals by subcategory. English Language Arts looks at looking at those subgroups and if they are meeting the goals in not only achievement but also in progress, which again indicates growth. The same is true for mathematics, looking at mathematics achievement as well as looking at mathematics progress or growth. And then last but not least is the Gifted Performance Indicator, which is new to this area. And it looks at 3 items. One is the performance of our gifted scholars, again, achievement, looking at their test scores. The second one is progress, again, how much growth did they make? And then the third area is gifted identification and also servicing of those scholars. So some of our gap closing highlights are on this screen now. So we received graduation points for exceeding the goals for graduation rate for our Black scholars, economically disadvantaged, and English language learners. We also received a point for exceeding the ELA achievement goal for our Black scholars. We got points in gifted for progress, and we got the maximum amount of points for identification and services of our gifted scholars. We also, as I already stated, received our maximum amount of points on the English language learner progress on the OELPA assessment. And then last but not least, we also received progress points for ELA and math achievement or progress for our Asian and English learner scholars.
Yeah, hi. Let me jump in with a question here. So,
Yes.
so we're highlighting that we received an ELA achievement point for Black students. Just want to understand what is the magnitude of 1 point? So, because you didn't say star, you said a point.
Right.
So, are we talking like we're on a 0 to 100 scale and we went up 1 point?
So you're talking a 0 to 9 scale.
0 to 9 scale.
Mhm.
Okay, and we went up 1 point on a 0 to 9 scale.
On that area.
On that area. Okay, and then you said we got gifted points, plural, for progress, identification, and services, again on a 0 to 9 scale? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, I mean, so we called out the point for Black students. Want to understand for the gifted, did we go up 2 points, 3 points? Do we know?
So for identification and services, we had 5 points out of 5 that you could receive on that one. For the gifted progress, unfortunately, I don't recall off the top of my head exactly what those numbers are. But all of these items add up to the points in each category. It is a massive component here that all of these things kind of add in. But again, in those categories, for instance, in the ELA achievement, there are 9 subgroups that we could earn points in.
Right.
And so to your point, in that one specific area, there was 1 point for our Black students that met the goal.
Okay, so, 0 to 9 scale. Okay, so I guess what was the baseline? So we went from 1 to 2, 7 to 8. So when we say that we received a point for Black students, like, what do we go from what to what?
So there was no, there
and again,
wasn't
my
a
questions are
baseline.
calculated because I'm seeking to understand, not because I'm trying
No problem.
to be difficult. I just want to understand what's in the slide.
Right. So this one, we could have a full session, but like you were stating, I'll give you an example. So there were 9 areas, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that the graduation rate or the graduation goal for Black students could have been, this is just my example, because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the example could be that the rate was 67% that they had for Black students to meet the state goal. And then by exceeding it, that means that we scored above 67%, or Black students scored above 67%, or they had a graduation rate higher than 67%. And that would be an area where we have exceeded or met the state's goal. And those numbers change every year.
Right.
So they also increase in terms of what the goals are for each subcategory in these areas every year as well.
So in your example, let's just use your example. What in your example would have gotten me the additional point?
Actually meeting that goal, whatever the goal that the
gets you a
state
point.
lists.
So this wasn't a growth. This isn't the part of the that's measuring growth.
Yep.
This is the target set for a subgroup. So there might, I'm sure there are other districts that also met or exceeded the goal for certain subgroups. So in this particular instance, that was one of the things that distinguished this new report card for us, is that for that particular subgroup, for the goal set by the state for all of its schools, we exceeded that.
Right. So my assumption is that we want the board to understand this, right?
Yes.
Right. So again, to your point, there's a lot more detail that we could go into, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, I don't understand some of what we're covering, and so I don't know if that means that you say, hey, Dr. All, this is a preliminary slide deck, right? And we're going to come back and do a more in-depth presentation later on that would allow us, to have some time in between to kind of pepper you with questions offline, so that way we understand more of the background. So that way when we see the slides, the slides make sense, right? Because again, I think the goal is we're doing this tonight because we want the board to understand it, right? And so I think I'm more confused than I feel like I should be as I'm walking through this. And so there are some of you who've probably seen, this is the first year we're doing this, so people can't say, well, I've seen this before. But that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying, like, I think it's probably advisable that we come back and do another session like this. But again, I'm going to let you get back to the slides. But again, my questions are that I just don't follow this, and so when we're talking about, and this is how I'm wired, right? If we're going to discuss scoring, I want to understand the scoring methodology, right? And if that's too complex to cover in a board meeting, then let's find another way to get that information out. Otherwise, we're just sitting here with our eyes glazing over because we don't understand the methodology that's up on the slides in front of us, right? So I want this time to be value add for you all presenting it and value add for all of us hearing it.
Yes, Dr. Hoffman?
Thank you.
I was going to say, none of us are really going to understand this first. When we got the first report card when I was on the board, we had no idea. But what we may have to do is go to Dr. Cavers and sit down with her so she can explain it a little better, and then we get a deeper understanding. Then when she comes back again, then we have.
I totally agree with that approach. Yeah, totally agree with that approach.
Right,
because it's our job to understand this, folks, right? Right. It's the board's job to understand it, and it's our job to work with all of you to make sure that we all understand this stuff, right? You know, so I don't need to be an expert, but when we're putting slides up, I have to understand what we're walking through. So
I would say also,
thank you.
At the committee meeting, I was able to ask Dr. Cave a lot of questions about these slides, and I got a really good understanding of it just being there asking those questions. So, like what Bruce said, you know, making an appointment and asking her those questions probably will clarify it for you.
Yeah, and so let's recall our committee structure, right? We assign 2 to 3 board members to a committee, right? And that's for a reason because, again, just as you all have other responsibilities, so do members of this community elected board, right? So, you know, so I don't think that what we should do is put the emphasis on board members that, hey, you got to be at every single committee meeting because above and beyond the ones that you're assigned to. I will try to make those meetings when I can, but it's also helpful to consume this as a group also. Right. You know, so again, it's just not me, you know, again, I appreciate what's going on here, but I just want to make sure that we all understand that there's an avenue for us to understand this, and that means emailing out homework or pre-reading before we get here. Sure. I think that would be awesome.
And that's what I was going to offer. We actually will share. There are quite a few resources, and I think imagine having not had this preview and just having received the report card itself. And so one of the things we're trying intentionally to do is to give you some degree of understanding, both in the committee structure and in the board meeting, knowing that it is going to take several iterations. I can't tell you how many webinars, meetings I've attended over the last even 2 years leading up to this point, where we've gone through, and most of the times they only go through a section. They don't even go through the whole report card. It's a meeting where you only talk about gap closing because there are layers of nuance in what's being calculated and measured and communicated through the tools. But we will share, because our state has done a really effective job at having some support resources available for those that want to go at a granular level. And we will continue to not only, this isn't a one-shot, because we consider this to be a piece of information, while we also pay attention to many other pieces of information that give us feedback on how it is that we're doing in terms of meeting the needs of our students. But we will continue to use this data and information as we talk to you many more times over. So,
I appreciate that. And again, this is more of a help me help you moment, right? I mean, in that, and I say this all the time, we're community elected, right? So when this report card comes out, there are going to be folks who reach out to us and say, wait, we got graded what? Right? So tell me, why is our score what it is in this particular category? Or why is our overall score this? Right? And so, candidly, it's embarrassing if I can't explain that. At least I'm not trying to say I need to be able to explain it as well as you do, Dr. Caver. But at the same time, as school boards are held accountable for how schools perform. School boards are too, not just senior staff. School boards are, and so I'm very interested in being held accountable at the community level. But I just want to make sure that I'm also being positioned to succeed as well with regard to that. So.
Okay. Yes, and at the end, there's a QR code also that was put in the presentation so that it can take you to the Department of Education website, where you can see the technical documents as well that can help you to understand how these ratings are calculated and what information information goes into coming up with each of these ratings. As the superintendent stated, today the presentation was intended to give you a preview of what's going to be on there and try to, at a high level, explain what goes into each one of these areas. But as she stated also, there are sessions that are 2 hours long to just go over one area to explain in detail from our ESC or from the state at times so that we can understand how these calculations occur as well. So we didn't see that as something for this venue to be able to go into in depth, but definitely I'll make sure you have those resources. And if you would like, we can also schedule additional time to go over additional questions. Okay? All right. So let's move on to the graduation rate, where we receive 1 star. And new this year is an overall component rating for the graduation rate, where we combine the 4-year and the 5-year graduation rate. This is not our data. This is actually an example that's given out by the state of how it is calculated. So the 4-year rate is weighted at 60%, and then the 5-year rate is weighted at 40%. And then you add those two together to determine what your overall component rating is for graduation. This is our actual data. And I want to point out and remind you all that graduation rate is reported in arrears. So this information comes out after the graduation rate has already been achieved. So our 4-year graduation rate is based on the class of 2021. Our 5-year graduation rate is based on the class of 2020. And when we put those two calculations together, we receive an overall graduation rate of 83.14%. That is the rating that we are receiving on this report card that will be released this week. I want to point out that we are 1% away from receiving 2 stars. We would need an overall rating of 84% in order to receive 2 stars. So we are very close to moving to a new rating. I also want to take this moment to talk about our trend data in graduation. This is both our 4-year rate and our 5-year rate on a graph for the past 5 years. The 2022 data at the very end has an asterisk by it because that information is preliminary. That information will not be reported until the report card is released next fall, but that is just information that I'm sharing with you based on what we are submitting to the state and what we have on internal systems currently. So again, we can see that we are trending in the right direction and that overall our graduation rate has improved about approximately 5% over the past 5 years.
Hey, Dr. Caver, can you go back to this one slide for me, please?
Go to the previous slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So do we know how the state arrives at 84% as 1 star or 90% to 93? Are these just numbers that they're pulling out of the hat, or is there some sort of national benchmarking that they're using to, it might feel like they pull out of a hat.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, but is there some sort of how do they know to set 3 stars at 90%, for example? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I don't have that exact answer for you.
No worries. Okay.
Right.
All right.
So they set these terms, and then sometimes they change. They set these rates, and they change. But I think that some of that is what they kind of describe in the technical documents, which are kind of thick for each area. But yes, I'm not sure exactly what they utilize to set these standards. Okay. And another area is early literacy. In early literacy, I'll speak to this one. Dr. Hall, I know you asked about this one previously. So now we're looking at reading achievement as well as reading improvement, I should say, as well as achievement, meaning proficiency for our scholars in grades K through 3. There are 3 areas that go into this component. The first area is looking at proficiency on the 3rd grade reading assessment. So The third grade reading assessment has several categories to it. So in order to meet this or to come up with this rating, we're actually looking at only the reading portion of the English language arts assessment and what is the reading sub-score that a scholar has in order to meet this standard. They're also looking at promotion to fourth grade, how many scholars are going to be promoted to the fourth grade. And then the last part is called improving K-3 literacy. And this actually has to do with, again, looking at scholars who are off track to being proficient in reading. And then how do they perform the next year in terms of moving from off track to possibly being on track for reading proficiency. Now let's look at the APS data. So for third grade proficiency, 40% of our scholars were proficient on the reading sub-score in the reading proficiency test. 99.6% of our scholars were promoted to fourth grade last year, or this year currently. And then improving K-3 literacy. From the scholars, this is a metric that is going from fall to fall. So when we say that we moved 31% of our kindergarten scholars to from off track to on track when they became first graders, this is looking at our instruction from the fall of 2020 to the fall of 2021. This is another one that's kind of reported in arrears. And so what we are looking at in these right here in these results is how did our scholars perform or how did they advance during the year of remote learning. Normally, our scholars in the past have been, our scores have been higher in the past, and we do expect this area to show significant improvement when we finish testing our scholars this fall and looking at the diagnostic scores that we'll receive just based on the fact that now they've had a year of in-person instruction behind them. So again, I just want to reiterate that those scores right there have to do with the year of remote learning. When you add those together, that's how we get the 1 star. The last category we will not be rating, and again, I just want to reiterate that it will not receive a rating until the year of 2025, which is the college, career, workforce, and military readiness component. This is that timeline again that shows you that that's when we'll actually receive a score in this area. And then these are the types of areas that are recorded or that go into this actual component. So these are the measures, looking at a remediation-free score on the ACT or the SAT. This is where it comes in, where our scholars earning industry credentials. This is where we are also looking at their scores on the AP and their IB exams. So they will also be tracking military enlistment. Those are all of the areas that you see up here that go into the measures that actually feed into this component so that you can get your rating. However, we will not receive that until the year of 2025, but they are collecting data on us year after year. So as I stated in the beginning, those were the 5 areas, and these are the percentage weights that go along with each of those areas to come up with our overall rating. We will not receive an overall rating in the year of 2022 when it's released, but we will see these stars, as I stated at the beginning, on our report card when it is released this Thursday. In the presentation, here's the QR code where you could scan and it will take you to resources as well as technical documents to get more information where we can really dig into some of those questions that even Dr. Hall presented at tonight's presentation.
So I have a few follow-up questions.
Yep.
So first off, is there a plan to come back to this board again to talk about this topic?
We would ordinarily have, more of the in-depth conversation at the instructional policy committee meeting. But if there are particular questions, because again, this content is dense, and and part of what we've been doing is as well already sharing both through our ESSER plan, because we also saw our trend data, kind of how it is. We had dedicated programs, resources, staff to recovering lost learning and getting kids on track. So it might be challenging in this format, just for a more kind of work session type of discussion, but willing to work with you all. So I know I meet with you all, board leadership, this week. Maybe we can go into some more detail about that.
Sure. Thank you. So a few more follow-up questions. So what I think would be helpful to know, and again, was not expecting this to be part of tonight's presentation, right? But I just want to understand, where do we rank, right, compared to other urbans? Where do we rank compared to other districts? That's sort of question one. Number two, I know that in the past we've all been critical, and I think rightly so, of certain portions of the report card, right? For varying reasons, whether it be methodology concerns or sort of the mechanics of some of it, right? So I guess what I'm interested in is we sort of, as you all have time to kind of unpack the contents of it, because I know that you are all still unpacking this, right? Also seeking to understand it, right? I'd be interested to hear with this new report card, which of the identified areas of opportunity are areas that we feel are fair call-outs, right? And which of the areas that we say, well, you know what, like that area there's something either inequitable or something inherently flawed from our viewpoint in the methodology that they employ to get to X, Y, and Z sort of metric and/or report, right? So that would be helpful for me to know as well. And then last but not least, do we understand the methodology right behind the measures, right? Because how else will we plan to improve if we don't understand the mechanics and the specs, right? And thankfully that's not my job. So that's all of you at senior staff. That's you get to unpack all that and have to be able to reach expert level in those tech specs. But again, but that's my question, right? Because and also too, alternatively, what I don't want to do is have us say, hey, there's a particular category where we just flat out disagree with the methodology, and so we're just not going to really address it, right? Because these are the grades, and so, but again, I want to balance that too, and with that, okay, what's a fair call out, and what do we think is a call out that maybe is not fair, because I think that helps to manage the expectations of the board, and allows the board to help assist you all in managing community expectations around some of these measures, right? So it's kind of that Jerry Maguire help me help you kind of a thing. So those are my concluding sort of comments. And so I do very much appreciate your presentation. I know I asked you a lot of questions, but your time and effort that went into this was certainly very much appreciated, Dr. Kaver.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. And your questions are appreciated. It keeps me growing and also keeps me on my toes, Dr. Hall. But also know that we are definitely looking as a senior team, looking at the data, and also just like we set goals, or just like we have goals and expectations that are set by the state, we are digging enough to determine what can we do, what do we put in place, are there any adjustments we need to make in order to continue to progress. And so in terms of how do we fare against other districts, we don't have access to the district's information until it's released. So we will definitely be weighing ourselves against, for instance, the Big 8 to determine where do we fall. And again, with the release of this new report card, we have to wait to get an understanding to see how do we fare in comparison to other districts right now. So those are fair questions, and there are also questions that we're looking for answers to as well. So thank you again.
Can I just add on to that, though? One of the things that I believe was a level of intentionality behind this approach to the state report card to get away from the grades, the A through F grading, and to get to stars, was trying to get to a different way of communicating about progress that, was transparent and gave the information needed both for families and the schools, but trying to get out of that sorting, ranking type of concept. We have in our own educational circles said, it's likely that we will, folks will still find a way to say, kind of where do we rank, to sort and rank. But what this is intended to do is to give us guiding information as we seek to meet the needs of our students, to be able to give more granular ones in certain areas, whether it's graduation rate, whether it is in the early literacy, to say, as you focus, kind of here's where you are, here's even more particular information of how to move your students forward. This is a result you saw just a week ago too. I think I forwarded you all information about the nation's report card, the NAEP scores, that for the first time ever, hit dramatic lows in the areas of literacy and mathematics and things of that nature. So clearly, regardless of district type, school type, things of that nature, we are all feeling the effects of COVID and the learning loss, which again, then you had our federal state education chief talking back to resources and supports that they've already offered, and while they're continuing to think about those as we move forward, because we do have work to do. And so I think I applaud the work of our team. We did show some growth in movement, but we celebrate that, but our nose is down to say what must we do to make sure many, many more of our students are on track and thriving, both in the academics, but also social, emotionally, and mentally. So we do have work to do moving forward.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Madam Superintendent? All right, hearing and seeing none.
Can I also thank Dr. Caver, though, for just a few weeks on the job to get command of our data and information. Great job.
Thank you very much. And hopefully, this report card will stay this way for a longer period of time than normal, so that we can get a handle of it. With that being said, we'll move to President's Report. Just a few things. First, thank you to the district for a great opening of school. And I was able to go to a few schools for that first week. One doing the clap-in for the first day for Helen Arnold was, as Ms. Jackson said, pretty energizing. And I also got a chance to sit in a classroom, and unfortunately, the teacher's name is escaping me, but she had pictures of every student that she had in Helen Arnold on her wall, and she decorated her room with really vibrant colors, and I thought that was really good as she was, since it was the first day, setting expectations for her class. I appreciate having that opportunity to sit in that third grade class there. With that being said, also got a chance to see Chomps and join Dr. Hall and Superintendent Fowler-Mack and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Cavers and a whole host of different staff, and even saw Mrs. Otley Kelly almost knock down Chomps just to get a picture. So that was awesome to see. But overall, it was good to even engage with some of the parents and to see their excitement and also their tears of joy to see their children. So that's always a good thing, and just want to thank that staff and everything, and appreciate the partnership with the Cleveland Browns. Though I'm not a football fan, I do love seeing Chomps. It's probably the best thing about the Cleveland Browns. But anyway, so with that being said, also, so I also had the opportunity. I was going to attend Miller South. Had to do some rescheduling because Principal Schmidt wouldn't be there. We have a new principal at that school, so I'm excited to get a chance to meet her. And then since our last meeting, I was able to join one of our ERG groups at the Akron Pride March and Parade, the APS Pride, and it was, I can't really tell you the exact number, but it seemed like it was 40 or 50 people there for our APS altogether. It was a beautiful sight. And I thought last year was great. This seemed like it was bigger. Superintendent Fowler Mack joined us. It was really a good thing to see and appreciate the work that they do as well. Then two other things just about board business. We have a treasurer search starting. We just had a special meeting with the search firm earlier today, and we'll be putting out that announcement tomorrow. And excited to start that process, even though still sad to see Mr. Pendleton go. And the last thing is we are going to do a retreat. We're going to give more information on that later, but excited to have that meeting with our consultant, Superintendent Fowler Mack, and I met with her, and I think you will be you'll be proud, and also have some opportunities to have some reflection and some thoughtful facilitated dialogue at our retreat in October. So with that being said, those are the main things that I wanted to share for the President's report. Any questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will go to the Treasurer's report. Mr. Pendleton.
No report, thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go to committee reports, legal contracts, and board policy.
No report, but we're working on a date for our next meeting.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Alexander? Seeing and hearing none, finance and capital management, Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met on August the 29th, and we had a discussion around ESSER funds, including timelines. And just as a reminder, we have 2 school years remaining to utilize those funds. One pivotal date that we need to keep in mind, March of 23, the district must know what ESSER funded initiatives are going to be continued and moved to general fund. So that's just something to kind of keep on our minds as we move forward. One other thing, I know we've talked a lot about sustainability as well, and one of the things that was discussed in the meeting is that I believe, Mr. Pendleton, you said $10 million is, I guess, sort of set aside per se for sustainability initiatives for whatever we decide. So although we don't want to lock ourselves in, some of those broad areas will probably be around safety, social emotional learning, and staffing. And so those are just some of the things that we discussed. Also, I know Dr. Hall, you were there and added some some insight and continued focus on our plans around our building, Kenmore Garfield in particular. And so I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add, or Ms. Jackson, you were there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Autry. I'll jump in. Yeah, I think one of the things I was just conveying was that that there's still concerns about what we do with regard to Kenmore High School. That building remains empty, and we don't currently have a plan. Don't currently have a plan on how we improve that building, or how we think about bringing back educational services, to that building in its current state. And so that continues to be an area that I continue to push on. I think it's worthy of follow-up conversation. And so, I know folks who may be viewing this tonight, we haven't forgotten about Kenmore as an area that needs attention. And so that's the main thing I wanted to say about that. And so I think to that point, I think that there's some, I think that we've got some plans to sort of continue to get move this process forward as it relates to Kenmore, and I think we've got a timeline, I think, in place at this point to at least ensure that we've got as much feedback as we possibly can have on this particular topic. But it does remain an area of huge priority, I think, for us. So I just want to, so Ms. Autry, I appreciate you, give me the chance to kind of say that, and because I do want to make sure that this stays top of mind with the members of this board. And so I'll conclude my comments with that. Thank you, Ms. Autry.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Any questions for the Finance and Capital Management? Hearing and seeing none, we will move to instructional policy and student achievement. We're going to, I guess, start with Ms. McKittrick.
Actually, we're going to start
McKittrick.
with Ms. Autry.
And so actually, we already discussed the items that I was going to report out on previously regarding Edmentum and then also the AmeriCorps tutoring. And so I was going to report out on that. I can add that 2 of those tutors have been identified already for CASE in Forest Hill. And then they'll be placed at other buildings as the need is identified.
And as always, you have links for College and Career Academy, Family Resource Center, and Stay in the Game updates in your agenda.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Instructional Policy Committee? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go to Equity Committee. Dr. Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar. So we met Tuesday, the 6th of September, and received a report from the superintendent sort of walking us through a new partnership with NetPAC International that is consistent with one of our goals outlined in our advanced APS document of increasing supplier diversity. So I think that was a well-received presentation. I think I think the heart of what we talked about, and I think as far as what consumed the most time was, we had Ms. Sykes come and provide a report out on the family and community engagement study. So we employed an organization called IEL, known as the Institute for Educational Leadership, where they provided some highlights around their engagement and equity audit. And so again, I'm not going to walk through the entire thing. But essentially, we talked through the process that they employed to gather the information, and sort of that occurred primarily in 4 phases. First phase 1, I think for me felt like it was the most important because it was foundational, and that it was a review of all of our policies and protocols and data, right? And that communicate, our values or refer to or define expectations as relates to how we do family and community engagement. So the second phase was a perception survey, and so this was an area that I thought the methodology was sound, but we did talk about how do we get more respondents for that survey. And so we talked about, and then of course we kind of walked through phase 3, which is, a site visit, which consisted of deep dive interviews and focus groups. And then sort of last but not least, we kind of talked through what the strengths and opportunities were by category. And so, for example, we kind of, there were opportunities as related to, so I'm not going to read the slides to you, but what I will say is that in short, there are some things that we're doing well, but I think there are also some questions that we're trying to get that needs moving on. I know I ask questions because one of the things that consultants do, and this is not a dig at all consultants, but it's consultant talk, right? Whereas they like to use the word leverage a lot, which makes me absolutely insane because that word doesn't provide any detail about how you do something, right? It just says, for example, one of our opportunities was to continue to leverage current policies, right? So what's the word leverage mean in this context, right? So, and there were some highlights around, building on pockets of distinction across APS, and so it'd be nice to. One of the things I talked about was it'd be nice for us to identify who and what those pockets of distinction are, and what, if any, best practices or cultural norms have been established that can be duplicated or shared out with groups that would fall outside of a pocket of distinction, right? So, but again, overall, I mean, I thought that the methodology that they employed was sound, and I know that there's some additional follow-up work that we're going to do as it relates to the engagement and equity audit as well. And then moving to the next topic, we had Mrs. Alexander. Let me get that right, Mr. Alexander. Mrs. Alexander, came and gave us a really robust update around the new teacher project and the work that they're doing as it relates to DEI. So we kind of talked through a committee that's being established. It's meant to be more of a cross-functional committee, if you will. Then we also talked about, in that block, we also talked about sort of the professional development approval process, right? And how do we kind of work to ensure that we've got professional development that is around DEI, that is being sort of rolled out sort of layer by layer. And so we talked about there being a timeline and that this committee is going to work to have in place with recommendations due in January, and those recommendations will outline the plan for the next 2 years, in part dealing with training at a building level. You have that right, Ms. Chapman? Yeah. Okay, all right. And then last but not least, we had Ms. Carter that provided some comments. She worked very hard to be brief because we were at the end of the meeting. So I think we cut her off, but we're going to try to get her some more time at the next equity meeting. But she gave a nice update around the alternative resident educator and licensure program and how those recruitment efforts are going. And then she also shared that she's actually going to be speaking at the University of Mount Union's School of Education Symposium on DEI. She'll be giving a talk called Cultural Competence in the Educational Workforce. And so that's going to be on September 30th, I think at 9 o'clock is a note I have written here, 9 to 10, yeah. So it'd be nice if some of us could get down there to support. I know some of us on the board have a school board conference that happens to be on that day, so I know that those of us who are going won't be able to make it, but it'd be nice if some of other board members or other senior staff in the room, it'd be nice if some of you could get down and support Ms. Carter in giving her comments. And so that is where we concluded our meeting, and we did not get to Ms. Chapman's diversity officer report, but I did promise her that we would start there at the next equity committee meeting. So she will have first dibs on an efficient and effective use of the time within that hour. I call it our power hour. So anyway, so that concludes the equity report, and happy to take or field any questions that any of you may happen to have on this topic.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion for the Equity Committee? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to the remainder of the agenda. There's no unfinished business or new business to come before the board, but we do have a need to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 for the purposes of discussing employment, an employee of the district, and G4 for the purposes of reviewing negotiations and bargaining sessions with employees concerning compensation or other terms and conditions of employment. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Dr. Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Alexander. We will do a roll call. I'm sorry, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Ms. Jackson? Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now stand in recess for executive session. There is no action that will be voted on when we return. So I hope everyone have a great day. We now stand in recess.